everybody. Welcome to Common Sense Living Podcast, where I'm going to invite you to listen to a remarkable man, Mike Coy. He has so much stuff that he's put under his belt. So Mike Coy, fueled by his father's parting words, make a difference, champions those hungry for success. He's a best-selling author and keynote speaker. His journey gained depth through an unyielding fight against cancer, fueling his acclaimed book, I Choose Live. There's no cheating cancer, and we all have a choice to make. This battle solidified his pursuit of excellence beyond his stellar career as a registered financial consultant. Mike's accolades extend to a triumphant baseball journey, coaching luminaries like Drew Brees, and offered a minor league contract with the New York Mets. Mike's empowering speeches stir audiences, infusing them with life-changing strategies. He champions a belief: winners find a way to win. Losers only find excuses for why they fail. So welcome, Mike. How did your father's advice make a difference, son, shape your career choices and personal philosophy?
Well, thank you for having me, Ann. I really appreciate it. Yeah, my father was my idol. He was a coach. He was a layman, disciple of Christ minister, and we had to put him in an assisted living complex. And I went by to see him. My son was a tremendous athlete at Austin Westlake, which is known as a powerhouse. That's where Drew Brees and Nick Foles and Sam Ellinger. I mean, there's so many athletes that came out of Austin Westlake. And I was the voice of the Westlake Chaparrals for 12 years. I did radio on baseball, but I did the Shap TV, the Time Warner cable, for football. And I just had a blast doing that. And I was setting up for baseball. My son, it was his first varsity game. And I went by to get my dad, and the nurses said he won't get dressed. He won't get ready. And I went in and I said, Daddy, I said, we got to go. I've got to set up for the broadcast. And it's Christopher's first game. And he said, I really don't feel like it. He said, I'll make the next one. Uh-huh. And I said, I got to go. I've got to go set up the radio broadcast and everything else. And he goes, well, I said, I'll bring Christopher by after the game. And as I was leaving, it ended up being the last words that he ever said, and that was, son, make a difference.
Oh, wow.
And, I didn't think anything about it at the time, because I felt like he was referring to all the coaching that I was doing and being involved with kids' lives and having at Westlake and all this kind of thing. But as I've gotten older, I feel like that it's become a much deeper realization, a much deeper passion for me, especially with the cancer. When I wrote my book, I Chose Live, I said that stress is a silent killer, but men, our death rate's 58% higher than women. Well, we know you're smarter than we are, but the main thing is men won't go to the doctor. And I think about the great Toby Keith. Toby Keith had this stomach cancer that he thought was indigestion. Oh. And you wait, and then all of a sudden, when a man finally goes to the doctor, and especially if it's cancer, it's stage 4, and you've got 6 months to live.
Oh my.
With men, prostate cancer and colon cancer are the two main cancers, and there's no easy cancer, but those are the simplest to treat if you catch it early. Mm-hmm. And so my focus is to mainly get what I call the women folk out there to get their men checked, whether it's a spouse, a brother, a father, an uncle. And so with my father's words, I went to the ball game. I was broadcasting the game. And I guess it was about the second or third inning, my daughter drove up and was talking to her mom, and her mom pointed to the press box. And so a few minutes later, my daughter came up, and I cut to commercial, and I turned around, and Jennifer said, the nursing home called and Gramps is gone. And I feel like that he knew that. I really believe that if this was over, and I don't think he wanted to come to the game and pass away and then be the center of attention when it's my son's first varsity game, right?
Oh, yeah,
And
yeah.
it's amazing how God can be so mysterious at times and work in mysterious ways. But it really hit me on the fact that those were the last words that he ever said, and it had quite an impact on me then, and then continuing today on me trying to just get the message and to talk to people and see what I can do to pay it forward, to inspire, to motivate, and to educate. And that's
Mm,
exactly what you do. I mean,
yeah.
that's how strong your message is, especially when it comes to the health issues. But I was a typical guy. I was I had gone through a divorce, and I had one of my closest friends was in home office with Aflac, my company that I work for, and he said, I need a director of training and recruiting for the state of Georgia. And I immediately packed up and left Austin. And after I'd been there for all those years and raised the kids, and moved to actually I moved to Kennesaw. I didn't want to move to Atlanta mainly because of the traffic and everything.
Yeah.
I moved to Kennesaw, and I had this huge position with my company. Uh, I had gone through the divorce. The stress level was off the roof, and I was there about 6 months, and I was having this continuous sore throat. And so, like a typical man, I just let it ride for about 5 or 6 months. But finally, I got a doctor's appointment. She came in and she checked me, and she said, well, it's probably a sinus infection, drainage. I'll give you some antibiotics. Now, you have to understand something, Ann. I had a tumor the size of your fist at the base of my tongue,
Oh my
and it
God.
was growing.
Oh my God.
And so I took the antibiotics, did nothing. I went back about 6 weeks later, and she said, well, I'll give you some higher impact antibiotics. Well, all those antibiotics did was destroy my immune system. And uh, and so on the July 4th weekend, 2013, I went in the bathroom, and one of my lymph nodes had popped out from my neck like a golf ball.
Wow.
And I thought, that's not good. So I took a picture of it, and I sent it to an ear, nose, and throat doctor in Austin. That was one of my closest friends. I coached his
Mhm.
son, and he saw it, and he goes, Mike, quit screwing around with the primary and go see a specialist. So I forced my way into an appointment to get a referral. I went to see a specialist 2 days later. They gave me 5 needle biopsies. Now, if you haven't had a needle biopsy, it's something you really ought to try someday. It's a lot of fun.
Well, yeah,
And
I bet.
and so and he said, look, it's probably nothing. I'll give you a call in a couple of weeks. Well, I had left home office and taken my own district right on the border of Tennessee and Georgia, in Dalton, Georgia. And I actually had moved into a condo in Tennessee because Tennessee doesn't have a state income tax. So I made sure that my residence was Tennessee. And that afternoon, I got a phone call from the nurse that the doctor wants to see you tomorrow at 2 o'clock.
Oh my God.
And so I drove 2.5 hours back to Atlanta, and he walked in the room and he said the 3 words that you never want to hear, and that's, you have cancer.
Mm.
And so that's when the process started. And kind of a funny story. He said, look, we're going to get you set up with some heavy duty chemo on Sunday. You're going to be in the hospital 7 days, 7 nights. You're off 2 weeks. You're going to be in the hospital 7 days, 7 nights. And then we're going to have to do 12 outpatient, and we're going to start radiation immediately. And I remember telling him, I said, what's Sunday? He goes, well, this Sunday. And this was like Wednesday, Thursday, something like that. And I said, I can't do that. I just started this new district. I just moved to Tennessee. I mean, the timing is bad. What is plan B? And he looked at me and he said, "You die."
Oh,
And I said, "All right, well, let's go back to plan A." And so, going through the key, and here's the thing, Ann, I'm an athlete. It's something I've always tried to take care of myself. I've never been sick a day in my life. And
wow.
I've had 4 knee surgeries and I've blown my Achilles, but that's all sports related.
Yeah.
I said, but I've never been sick a day in my life. But the thing about it is, I allowed this tumor to go to a strong stage 3 when I could have stopped it probably at stage 1, and
Yeah.
it would have been a much simpler process. But again, that's why I wrote the book. It's the reason why I try to get the message out and do what I do.
Yeah. And I like that. I like to look at life as it hands you this, and it's a gift, even if it's this horrible negative thing with your cancer, or if it would have been just awesome, everything, right? Because it's how you handle that. So you went through that, so you can share this story today and help thousands or hundreds of thousands of people with your story, and they can get treatment sooner if they're going to listen.
Well, and you know as well as I do that whenever we talk, whenever when you do the podcast, if we can just help one person, we've done our job.
Yes.
Now, hopefully, we can reach more people. But if we can just reach, and I'll give you a story on that. I play this. I still play this men's senior baseball. I think that I'm 25 years old, and I was in Austin. This is 5 or 6 years ago. I was on the speaking tour. I was going around mainly to Aflac kickoff meetings, and I was telling my story and talking about the cancer plan, how it saved me over $26,000 of out-of-pocket expense and stuff like that. And I was on third base, and the third baseman, a really good guy, good third baseman too. His name's Jimmy. He said, "Mike, my wife made me read your book." And I went and got a colonoscopy a month ago. Now he was 55, 56 years old, and you're supposed to get it when you're 50.
Mm.
And he said he had put it off, no problem. But his wife forced him to go get that colonoscopy, and he had 6 precancerous tumors that were removed. But the doctor said if you would have waited another 18 to 24 months, you'd have had full-blown colon cancer. And he said, "You saved my life." I said, "Jimmy, you saved your life,
Mm.
by the act of doing, by
By the action.
getting
Yep.
this done and getting checked." And that's the kind of accolade that you would like to have, just from the standpoint of somebody doing something for themselves that, in this case, could have quite possibly saved his life.
Yeah, because you do everything right. You eat clean, you exercise, you do everything, and yet you get it. So what is the purpose of that other than you wrote the story, he listened and took action? So,
Yeah, it was one of the parts that I tell when I speak is that when you're going through chemo, you're going through radiation, you have good days, and then you have some days that are a little tough. And I remember one day I was into my treatment about 3 or 4 weeks, and it was tough. And I was out on the balcony looking over the Chattanooga River, just gorgeous summer day. The wind was blowing, just a perfect day. And I felt something, kind of a clump on my arm. And I looked down, and it was this clump of hair. And I looked, and this hair was going everywhere. And I took my fingers and I ran it through my head, and every hair on my head fell out.
oh my
Now,
God.
now I got my hair back. That's all I cared about. I didn't care about the tumor anymore. I wanted my hair back.
Yeah.
But that's when the realization hits you that you're going through something.
Mm.
And I remember going back into the house, sitting in my easy chair. I turned on the TV. I think it was TNT or something, and the movie Shawshank Redemption.
Mm.
Now, I don't know if you remember that or not, but it catapulted Tim Robbins into a star. He was falsely accused of killing his wife, and he was sent to Shawshank prison. And the first 6 or 8 weeks there, he was beaten, he was abused, he was raped. I mean, it was horrible. And they had a scene out in the yard when he was talking to a lifer that happened to be played by Morgan Freeman. And
Mm.
Morgan Freeman character Red had been in Shawshank for 40 years.
Wow.
And Tim Robbins said, "This place is a living hell. How could you be here 40 years? I mean, how in the world could you exist here for 40 years?" And Morgan Freeman, the character Red, said, "Well, life is about choices.
Mm.
You either get busy living or you get busy dying." And Ann, I'm telling you, I turned off the TV. I had this epiphany.
Mm.
I got up, I went to my desk, and that's when I wrote, "I chose live."
Mm. Yeah, it's funny how things come to you, isn't it? Huh.
But it's so true. I
Yeah.
mean, it is so true. You either get busy living or you get busy dying.
Yeah, you're
You know,
doing one
I
or the
mean,
other.
yeah, I mean, in the choices that life gives us choice. And I think about the great American philosopher Rocky Balboa. And Stallone says it's not how many times you get knocked down, it's how many times you get up.
Yeah.
And it's your decision. I will tell you, I can remember a handful of people asking me if I ever thought about giving up during this process, because I ended up losing over 70 pounds.
Ooh,
I needed to lose some weight, but I didn't need to lose
not
70 pounds.
70.
And it just got to a point where it's difficult, it's tough, and my answer was always the same: no way. At the time, I had a 6-month-old grandson who didn't know me,
Mm.
and I had not walked my daughter down the aisle. And now I got 3 grandsons that probably wish they didn't know me. And I did walk my daughter down the aisle, and now she's blessed me with a 5-year-old beautiful baby girl. And but again, I think that the whole part of trying to get over some of these obstacles that life puts, what I call, again, with my baseball background, it's about you get thrown a curveball,
Mm.
okay? And those curveballs can
Right.
start to mount up. But if you have a purpose, if you have a singleness of purpose, for me, it was about being around my grandchildren. It was about being around, walking my daughter down the aisle and still being a part of her life. And so many people don't have that purpose. They don't have that go-to that can help them get through depression.
Right.
I think causes suicide, that I think causes giving up. And I try so hard with my messages and such to let people know that life is about choices. And I end every talk that I give, and by saying that I hope and pray that you choose the same path, that you choose the same choice that I made personally, and that was that I chose live.
Yeah. Well, we're both in our 70s, and when you look back, once you hit 65, you retire, you sit in your rocking chair, and you just wait for the Grim Reaper to come. And I didn't bloom until I was 71, and all I did was say yes to an opportunity. And now I'm just on a roll. I got the podcast going. I'm a speaker. I'm an author. Taming Diabetes Differently course coming up. I think it's just, I'm living. I existed before, but now I'm living. And I'm an inspiration, I feel, or at least I want to be, to people who don't know their course, or, all the stuff that's happened in my life. I am grateful for, because it made me who I am today. And my father was such a wealth of information. When I was a kid, he had said, always question authority. I said, Dad, you can't question the cops, for gosh sakes, they're the cops, right?
Yeah,
Well, fast forward into the days we're living now. Yeah, he primed the pump. I question authority because I am an authority in a good way, because I don't listen to that BS. I know it's
right.
there, but I don't, I'm aware of it, but I don't live it. I live for the better. I live for the hope and the glory and the love of everybody. I love you. I've never met you before, but I love your story. Therefore, and what the message and what you stand for makes me love you. So,
Well, I appreciate it. I mean, my kids will tell you my life is definitely defined what we call AC and BC, before cancer and after cancer.
yes.
And I can assure you that some things that affected me before cancer, now I just kind of blow off. I just kind of laugh. I mean, I get cut off in traffic and I think about, wow, that guy must be in a hurry. Instead of road rage, instead of
Yeah.
trying to challenge somebody, I go to the grocery store and the lady in front of me, has got 500 groceries. And I sit there, and then at the very last minute, then she pulls her checking account book out and writes the check. I guarantee you, 10 years ago, I would have said something. Now I just laugh.
Yeah,
I mean, it's about how you accept the challenges in your life,
exactly.
and that's what I talk about, stress being
Mm.
the silent killer, because stress will reduce your immune system, and that's when, like in my case, the doctors told me that there's absolutely no doubt that cancer had been around for a while, but then boom, it grasped, it reached, and got me.
Yeah.
And so there again, it also is the way that you handle it. The doctor told me, the oncologist, he was a great guy. He was an older guy. I have a feeling his bedside manner wasn't the nicest in the world, but I loved him. And he called me Tex,
Hmm.
and he said, one of the things that we talked about was about me being in the shape that I was in. He said, "You're going to get through this a lot easier than a lot of folks, because you're an athlete, you're disciplined, you know what this is going to go." And my wife, I remarried, and she is actually the scheduler for Texas Oncology. She's the one that sets up the chemo and the radiation for people, and that's how we met. And she told me, she said, "I don't think you realize how serious that cancer that you had was." Now, it wasn't so much life or death, but they didn't know if they were going to be able to save my vocal cords, or if they were going to have to remove my tongue. And for somebody that speaks for a living, I mean, I have my own band. I've been performing for charity concerts and stuff for years, and
Guitar.
that's tough.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a situation that you hope that they can overcome, and uh, and it did.
Yeah. And when you say about the tongue, I remember in nursing school, there was a case where this guy was in the hospital and they thought he was dumb because he wouldn't write, he didn't speak, whatever. So they gave him a paper, to write, and he didn't know how to write. He lost his tongue and he didn't know how to write. So they thought he was, just dumb, whatever, and then when they realized, so the way people look at a situation isn't always the way it is. And you're
Oh,
so,
oh, yeah, yeah. I mean, that's such a great story, because you something, and it's no different than me on coaching athletes. I mean, when you coach a Drew Brees, when you have a world class athlete, you find out that you handle them a certain way, because they're really, really good, but they want to be better.
mm,
And then you get in my case, a young man that is really needing your experience, your expertise, and it's about how you can push them to do something that they didn't think they could do. That you want to make them better as they get along. And when you have a young man in a summer baseball program that's really not very good, he could not make his high school team,
mm,
and then you get that phone call a month or so later saying, "Coach, I made the high school team." And I think that again goes back to the discipline, goes back to, if this is what you really want, then exactly what you've done in your life, and is that you go for it.
right.
And again, when we get into our 70s, it's like, I think about every time. I had a charity concert just a couple of weeks ago, and one of the songs that I showcase is "Don't Let the Old Man In." Now
Hmm.
that's a Toby Keith ballad. It was based on it was the theme song for the movie The Mule with Clint Eastwood.
Oh yeah.
Clint Eastwood played a uh, a Korean vet, true story, that had gotten down on his luck, and he had a friend of a friend ask him if he could drive. He said, "I can drive." Well, he ended up for the next 3 years being the #1 drug carrier, the drug mule
Ah,
for the Mexican cartel. And the way it came about is that Toby Keith was playing in a charity golf tournament in California, and his playing partner was Clint Eastwood.
hmm.
And Toby Keith said, "Whatever you do, don't play Clint Eastwood for money on the golf course. He'll take every dime, right?" And so they were going down the fairway, and Toby Keith was just making conversation. And he said, "Well, Clint, you got anything going?" And Clint said, "Yeah." He said, "Matter of fact, I'm leaving tomorrow to go to Texas. I'm filming this movie, The Mule, and it's going to be a 6-month shoot." And Toby Keith said, "Look, I don't mean to be rude, but how old are you?" And Clint Eastwood said, "Well, I'm getting ready to be 89." And Toby Keith said, and Clint Eastwood's 93 now, but he said, how can you do that?" He said Clint Eastwood got out, went and got his club, and walking back to the cart, he stuck his head in. He said, "I just don't let the old man in."
Mhm.
And when he did, that just resonated with Toby Keith. He went back to the hotel room that night and wrote this beautiful ballad. So when
Wow.
with you, how do you do the things that you do? I mean, I still work full time. I have I do these podcasts. I do the charity concerts with my music. I snow ski. I play men's senior baseball. And when people ask me, "How do you do what you do?" Well, now I've got the answer. I just don't let the old man in.
I like that. I won't let the old woman in either.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. Wow. Us old people, and I love to say that because I'm aging younger. That's what I tell people. And they tell me, like, I was 74 just a week and a few days ago. "Don't say you're so old." And I said, "Why not? I'm proud of it. I'm 74 and I'm aging younger." And I swear, this is my natural color. I'm not gray. I have wrinkles and they don't see them. I said, "You don't see all these wrinkles? Oh my goodness." Because we are fault finders about ourselves, right? But I feel vibrant inside. I feel alive. And now that I have my voice, that as a child, I was told children are to be seen and not heard. So I
Yeah.
just kind of shut up and took the shit people would dump on you. And I just took it and tried to knock me down. And all that did was pile me up higher until I just decided I'm born again, so to speak. And
Yeah.
I really feel that I was gifted with my voice and my strength, determination, fortitude. I joined the service when I was 31. I took an leave of absence from the factory job. It was just the Iowa Army National Guard. Okay, it wasn't the real, but I
Sure.
did the grunt and grind in the beginning, but I never had to go overseas. But it's something I always wanted to do. And if I wouldn't have, I'd always wondered what woulda, coulda, should have been. So that gave me the whenever I think I can't do something, Sarge kicks in and yes, I can. And
Yes.
the first time I stood on stage, I froze. I was partway through and then I froze. Where can you go but down? I was afraid. And I revamped that thought. I said, what the heck am I afraid of? It's just people out there listening to me. If I want to go back in life to see what is a real fear, it's Victory Tower, straight up 50 foot. I'm scared to death of heights. And one misstep and I'd fall to my death. That's fear. So none of the rest of it matters. Just go for what your dream is, and as long as it doesn't hurt anybody.
Yeah. And this is sort of when I wrote "I Chose Live" uh, during COVID, sitting around staring at the wall. I remembered a short story that came from the series of Chicken Soup for the Soul, and this probably 25 years ago. but I remember a short story called A Simple Gesture by John Slatter. And I revamped that whole story, and it's a true story about the jock and the nerd
Mhm.
and how their lives came together. And then I wrote this second book, A Random Act of Kindness, and it was all about that there are things that happen in your life. There are things that you can do to affect people, to help people, that in some cases can change their life, but also in some cases it could save their life.
Mm,
And so, I've just had a lot of fun just having these speaking engagements of people reaching out to me, and it's been a fun ride. And I started with the Command Your Brand to just to help them help me get the word out, and to be
mhm.
on a very special podcast like yours, to be able to just tell the story. And like I said, if you can just help one person, then you've done your job.
Right. Yeah. Hmm. So when you were talking about losing your hair and how we can reframe our thoughts on something, we're older now and our hair is thinning and oh my goodness, I don't have any hair. And then you can think instead, you have hair. Somebody who doesn't thinks your hair is gorgeous, even if it's sparse, because they have cancer and they don't have hair. They have to wear the wig, that kind of thing. So that's why I like to go back to where you are now, and like it or not like it, why are you there? That's to me so much of the whole thing. I know you had a list of things here. I've got Mike's 10 lifestyle tips to help prevent cancer. And mind if I read them?
Oh, yeah, that's part of the. This is one thing I want your audience to know, that they can go to mikecoyspeaks.com/gift. mikecoyspeaks.com/gift. And I have the Mike's 10 tips on how to prevent cancer. And then I also have chapter 8 of I Chose Live, because I think it's a very powerful chapter, and that's free. It's a free gift for people to reach out and see. But yeah, I'd love for you to talk about that.
Okay, the first one is no tobacco. We know that. On all this vaping these kids are doing. And then eat healthy. Oh, yes, genetically modified and all that. It's raping the earth, as my father had said many years ago. The toxic chemicals we're putting on there is raping the earth. Try to maintain a healthy weight. That means eat healthy food, because the junk food's what's putting it on and killing you, baby.
Right.
Physical activity is key. And then there's skin cancer. It's one of the most common kinds of cancer and one of the most preventable. Avoid the sun midday, stay in the shade, cover your skin, don't skimp on sunscreen, and never use tanning beds or sun lamps. And so many of us have been real guilty of that, me in the past as well. And I'd like to add also about sunscreen, make it be organic,
Yes.
because otherwise you're smearing chemicals on and then the sun beats it into you. Viral infections are protecting yourself against certain viral infections to help protect against cancer. And practice safe sex by all means. Do not share needles. Get checked. Self-exams and regular checkups. And stress is a silent killer. And there is so much stress going on now, isn't there?
Yeah, but
COVID.
also that whether we like it or not, it's also the genetics have something to do
Yes.
with it.
Yes.
I remember I was helping with the enrollment with the Atlanta Independent School District one day, and there was this just cute as a button, this young kindergarten teacher, and she was in her early 30s. She was like 31, 32. She asked me, she said, do you think I should get a mammogram? She said, my grandmother died of breast cancer. My mother is in remission with breast cancer. I'm worried about me and my sister. And I said, well, look, I said, you've got the cancer plan. this is something that I would always recommend on early prevention. And sure, I said, go ahead and have that done. Well, she called me about a week later, and she said, my insurance won't cover it because I'm not age 40. And I said, well, look, the mammogram is going to cost $150. You get, for going to the doctor every year, you get $100 wellness check from Aflac. So go to the doctor, get your wellness check. Your mammogram is going to cost you $50.
Wow.
She got the mammogram, and sure enough, they called it a shadow in her left breast. They went in, got it out, very simple procedure. No chemo, no radiation, just removed that little speck. And the oncologist told her if she would have waited 8 more years, she would have had full-blown breast cancer, probably would have gone to her ovaries, and that her life expectancy would have been anywhere from 3 to 18 months. So there again, when we start talking about the prevention aspect of what we do, what you talk about, especially on the diabetes side, is that that you have to handle it your way. But the biggest thing to do, I think, is I preach about men getting that prostate exam, getting the colonoscopies, just to again to help prevent the 2 major cancers that men face, and that's prostate and colon.
Right. And I think it's unfortunate that our medical system and the insurance and all doesn't cover, for prevention, because to nail it at 40 is so much cheaper to pay for that for that lady, rather than developing it 10 years later and it's full blown and now money out of pocket for sure. And that's part of why our medical system is so expensive, everything about it.
And to your point, cancer is still the most expensive treatment that's out there. Now, Alzheimer's is catching up, but cancer is still the most expensive. And, I don't, in the back of my mind, it is such a cash cow for the pharmaceuticals, for the hospitals, for the doctors. We can put a man on the moon, but we can't cure cancer.
Yeah,
You're
right.
telling me that there's not a cure out there, but if we cured cancer, the trillions of dollars would go. I'm sorry, I just have in the back of my
I totally
mind
agree with you.
yeah,
Now,
there's something wrong with
it's
that theory.
the money.
Yeah, just follow the money.
Money. Yeah.
Just follow the money.
Now, we may have this portion bleeped out because I have 2 strikes against me on YouTube already, because I talked about some of the healthcare issues, and specifically about one flu shot that came off of the insert, because I gave flu shots and the insert from this pharmaceutical company, and they said, and strike.
Yeah.
So we'll see. There's other avenues. I'll just find a different one other than YouTube, because
there you go.
There's other ones out there. They can't stop me. God's behind me, pumping me forward. There's the words to get out, and you're an avenue for it, and can't stop us. Can't stop us now.
I just try to tell people when I do my talks and everything, is that I ask them to every morning look in the mirror and say, today is the first day of the rest of my life. I am going to seize this day. I am going to seize this opportunity and move forward. In my line of business, I wake up in the morning and it's like, okay, I got to go run for mayor today. I got to get out there and I've got to shake hands and kiss babies. I've got to be seen. I've got to have people know what I do and how much I enjoy helping people when they need it the most. And so, I really wish people would be, I can tell you this, is that I do everything in my power to stay away from the negativity.
Yes.
I mean, the negative comments, the negative people, the negative stuff. Life's too short. And
Yep.
there is no doubt, I understand I'm in proverbial last quarter of my life, and I'm not going to put up with it.
No, you're
And
not. No, you're
no,
not.
and so
You
it's
can
like,
you can live long too.
yeah, and I just want to stay focused on what's positive. My wife kids me because she said I'm the solution guy. If there's something that happens, what's the solution? I don't want excuses, because excuses are for losers. And so I want to have that opportunity to put forward how I can help somebody, including myself, take that next step. The Tim Tebow, the ex-pro
Mm,
quarterback, just a tremendous young man, extremely Christian young
yes.
man. He has a great saying that says that this isn't about any day, it's about today. Because
Mm,
yesterday's gone, tomorrow's not promised to any of us. What are you going to do today to have an impact on yourself, on your fellow man, and where you can help pay it forward for somebody else? And that's really what my focus is. And it's the reason why I wrote my books. It's the reason why I have my website. It's the reason why I do a lot of the things that I do today.
yeah, it's so inspiring. You are so inspiring. You're living proof of age is just a number. Attitude is everything. To me,
Oh,
attitude is
absolutely.
everything.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So what would you leave us with?
Yeah.
Uh,
The thing that I would like to really get across to people is that something can happen in your life. Again, life can throw the curveball at you.
mm,
And in my case, there was no cheating cancer. I mean, doctor came in, you have cancer. You got to get treated. You got to get this done. And life is about choices. We all have choices to make. And I think about that scene in Shawshank Redemption when Morgan Freeman said, either get busy living or get busy dying.
mm.
And I would ask people to just, first of all, please feel free to go to mikecoyspeaks.com/gift. There's 2 free gifts there. Just help yourself to Mike's 10 tips on how to prevent cancer and chapter 8 in my book, I Chose Live. They can go to ichoselive.com, ichoselive.com, find out more about me than they want. And then just figure out where they want life to take them. You know, one of the things I do, and with my music background, is that I'm part of the prison ministry with my church, and
Mm,
I will go into some of these area prisons, and I'll do a concert, and you know, these prisoners, they sit in a cell for 23 hours a day, and they have 1 hour to be outside. I just, it drives me nuts. And I,
Inhumane.
I have this, I'm in an opportunity to play some music, to mentor them, to talk to them about choices. Now, they made a choice that put them in prison.
Yeah.
And now, uh, and this is another one of my passions of trying to get the prison board. I would like for these men and women to have an opportunity to get their GED, to learn a trade, to get their associate degree in plumbing, to be an electrician, to be a welder. I mean,
Right.
so when they get out, they have a trade. They have something that they can do. But that's another time for another podcast. But you know, I just try so hard to talk to them about their choices and how they are able to, with their experience, with being in prison, putting themselves in prison, how they can reach out and help people, and especially young people, to stop following that particular path. And again, it's about choices. And
Right.
so, just the thing I want people to understand is that, hey, you get busy living or get busy dying, and I hope and pray that you take my path, and that is that I chose live.
Yeah. Inspiring. Totally inspiring. Of all the things you've done in your life, and you have such a simple message. Just choice. Yeah. So, Mike, I really appreciate you being on my podcast today. Thank you for sharing such incredible information. And thank you all, Common Sense Living listeners. And I'd like you to stay tuned for the next Common Sense Living podcast. Toodaloo. Thank you for tuning in to my Common Sense Living podcast today. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'm sure you learned something new. Please leave a kind review and share this episode with a friend. And be sure to subscribe yourself. You'll find me on iTunes, Spotify, and other platforms. And don't forget, we'll be here again next week with another insightful episode of Common Sense Living. I can hardly wait.